Today we're going to talk about something called the Law of Cosines. Okay, so we've already learned about right triangle trig, and we've learned about the Law of Sines. This is called the Law of Cosines. Okay, and it's another way that we can deal with triangles that are not right triangles. So, this is the formula for the Law of Cosines. Now, if you were to Google it, they really show you 3 different formulas. This is really the only one that you need. And I'm going to explain how this works. So, these C's that you see right here, the C, capital C is for an angle, lowercase c is for a side. The C is either going to be the side or the angle that you want to solve for. Okay, and then you can label A and B the other 2 sides. Okay, so this is the formula we're going to use. And again, C is going to be either the angle or the side that we're looking for. All right, so it says find the length of side XY in triangle XYZ. All right, so because I want to solve for side XY, I'm going to label that as side C. Now, because that is side C, the angle opposite has to be angle C. My other 2 sides are going to be A and B. All right, so I'm just going to rewrite our formula here. That way we have it. All right, so I'm going to plug things in here. So my side C is just C or X, whatever you want to call it, equals A and B. It doesn't matter which one's which, I just picked. So we have 45 squared plus 52 squared minus 2 times, my A was 45, my B was 52, times the cosine of angle C is 36 degrees. Okay, now, in all honesty, C squared is already by itself. My variable is all by itself. I would type all of this in my calculator at one time. Right? I would not hit enter until I was done. Okay, so if I do that, if I type 45 squared plus 52 squared minus 2 times 45 times 52 times the cosine of 36, I get C squared equals 942.8004 and some other numbers, right? Okay, but we just want C. We don't want C squared, so I need to take the square root of both sides. So when I take the square root of that, I get 30.71 or 30.7, in this case, centimeters. Okay, so this side length is 30.71 centimeters. Okay, my next example, we want to find the measure of angle Q in triangle QED. All right, so because I want to find angle Q, that means this is going to be my angle C. This side opposite of angle C is going to be side C. The other 2 sides are going to be A and B. So again, I'm just going to rewrite our formula up top so that we have it. And once you write that a couple of times, you'll have it in your head. All right, so let's plug in what we know. C squared is 10 squared. A squared, so that's 18 squared plus my B is 25, so 25 squared minus 2 times 18 times 25 times the cosine of C. And I don't know what C is this time, right? I don't know what the measure of angle C is. Okay, so now notice that my variable is down here this time. All right, so we're going to have to work to solve for that variable. So we're going to need to isolate it. So before I finish that, think about a similar problem. What if I had something like 10 equals, let's do 15 minus 5b. Okay, so if I was going to solve this, keep in mind, I want to isolate my variable. So I would subtract 15 from both sides. I'd have a negative 5 equals a negative 5b. Then I can divide by negative 5, right? And I would get b equals 1. Okay, but that's kind of what we have to do up here, right? It's kind of what we have to do here. We're going to need to subtract away these values and then ultimately divide by what's in front of the cosine of c. All right, so in my calculator, I will typically type 10 squared minus 18 squared minus 25 squared all at once. I'm going to write it out here just so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just rewriting here, but I would type this all into my calculator at once, at least the left-hand side. So if I do 10 squared minus 18 squared minus 25 squared, I get negative 201 equals, and now I'm going to multiply this in my calculator. My negative 2 times 18 times 25. That gives me negative 900 times the cosine of C. All right, so right now we're kind of where we were down here, where I have a coefficient in front of my variable. So I need to divide both sides by negative 900. So 201, negative 201 divided by negative 200, or 900, sorry, gives me, in my calculator, I have 0.223 repeating equals the cosine of C. Okay, now keep in mind, because we're solving for an angle, right, I'm going to hit second cosine, and then I'm going to press second answer, so it pulls in that decimal for me, and I get that C is equal to 77.1 degrees. That's 77.1 degrees. This is probably the one that people mess up the most because they don't follow order of operations. So you really need to think through this part up here. Like when you need to subtract away your constants first and then divide by that coefficient. So just watch your order of operations. Okay, one last problem here. This is going to be what your homework is like because your homework is on Delta Math. Okay, so it says solve for all parts of triangle KMN. So I'm going to go ahead and label my triangle KMN. It doesn't really matter what your triangle looks like or what order you put things in, just KMN. We know side M, so it's a lowercase m, so side M is 44. K is 54. And the angle K is 23 degrees. All right, so we want to solve for all parts. Okay, so now this one's actually going to be a little bit what we're doing on Monday as well. But this one I'm going to actually have to start with a law of sines because I have the angle that I have and the side that I have, that could be my C's, I have both of those. Okay, so what I'm going to end up doing is using the law of sines first in order to solve for angle M. All right, so I have the sine, oops, sorry, wrong pen. The sine of M over 44 equals the sine of 23 over 54. So when I multiply, I get the sine of M equals 44 times the sine of 23 over 54. Okay, so this is where I need to do my inverse sine. 44 sine of 23 divided by 54. And we're just going to round to the nearest whole number. So I get the sine of M, oh, I'm sorry, I get M is equal to, we'll go 19 degrees. There's 19 degrees. Okay, now, we know that the sum of all the angles in a triangle should add to be 180 degrees. So if I take 180 and subtract the two angles that I know, the 23 and the 19 degrees, I should get that angle N is 138 degrees. Now I want to solve for side N, or X, or C, or whatever you want to call it. Now I called it C originally because if this is C, this would be my angle C. I can use the law of cosines here. All right, you could also use the law of sines if you want, but I'm going to go ahead and use the law of cosines just so you can see it. So I'd have, I'll rewrite my formula, C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AB times the cosine of C. So in this case, here's my A and my B. All right, so we'd have C squared equals 44 squared plus 54 squared minus 2 times 44 times 54 times the cosine of angle C is 138 38 degrees. Okay, so another nice thing about choosing cosine here is that we can type that all in at once into our calculator. So I end up with c squared is equal to 8,383.4. Again, I still need to do my square root because that gives me c squared. I want just c. So c is equal to 91.6. So that side is 91.6 units, which should make sense, right? Because 138 is the largest angle. It is opposite of the largest side. All right, so this is what a lot of your homework is going to be like on Delta Math, where you're solving for multiple parts, but you should, I believe, have to only use cosine. So go ahead and get logged onto Delta Math and get started on your homework.